So React context is great. Let's use it for everything. Well, not quite. For one, keep in mind what I mentioned earlier. It can be great for app-wide or component-wide state, so essentially state that affects multiple components. It's not a replacement for component configuration. Consider our button here in the UI folder. The button should be reusable. Sure, we could use context to make sure that upon a click we always log the user out. But that would mean that we can't use the button for anything else than logging users out. And that might not be what you want. For example, in this application, we are using the same button component in the login component to log the user in and trigger the form submission, as well as we're using it in the home component to log the user out. So that is a scenario where using context in the button component would be bad. You want to use props here to configure the button. So props for configuration, context for state management across components or possibly across the entire app. But even then, we have limitations. React context is specifically not optimized for high frequency changes. So that means, for example, if you have state changes every second or multiple times per second, this is clearly not the case in our example here. For authentication, that does not change that often. It changes once every few minutes in reality, maybe not even that. So that is a perfect use case for context. But if you had state changes that happen much more frequently, again, talking about multiple changes per second and so on, then React context is not optimized for that. And you don't have to take this from me. This is actually something that was stated by an official React team member. So it's not great for high frequency changes. Now you might wonder, okay, but what if I have app-wide or component-wide state that changes often? I would want to use context for that. Props might not be ideal, and you're telling me that it's bad. We'll explore a better tool for that later, no worries. It will be called Redux, and I'll have a whole section on it. And as I mentioned, it should not be used to replace all component communications and props. Props are still vital and important for component configuration. So you should still use props for that and not use context for everything. For replacing long prop chains, it might, however, be worth a look.